Welcome to Health System CIO's interview with Dr. Matthew Sullivan, CMIO with Advocate Health Southeast Region. I'm Anthony Guerra, founder and editor-in-chief. Dr. Sullivan, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, good afternoon, Anthony. Thanks for having me.
All right, looking forward to having a little chat. So can you start off by telling me about your organization and your role?
Yeah, Advocate Health is the merger a couple years ago between Advocate Aurora and Atrium Health. That makes us, I think, sort of the second largest not-for-profit healthcare system in the nation, and certainly one of the larger overall. So we've brought that merger together successfully. We operate as a single enterprise today, and of course, as a large organization. I'm one of many of our CMIO teams. We have lots that do the work, as you can imagine, that keep the lights on for everyone.
Yeah,
Taking
very good. Awesome. Excellent. Great. Great. Okay, so we're chatting today. Really, what we're going to talk about is a little bit about your session coming up at the Chime Fall Forum. People can take a look at this and hopefully pop in and see you when they're at the show. So the session is called "The Time Is Now to Embrace Next Generation Clinical Decision Support." So let's talk about this a little bit. I guess first off, why did you pick this particular topic to address?
Well, I think clinical decision support is just one of the underpinnings of what we have always thought were the best things that could come out of installing EMRs across the nation, right? All of us that have been around for a long time recall that paper to electronic medical record transition. And
Hmm.
that transition came with a promise of being able to help support taking better care of patients along the idea of the triple aim or quadruple aim, depending on what your focus might be. And so, with clinical decision support, um, in its original phase, this is how do you stop someone and tell them that there's an allergy to penicillin or another medication? So that's sort of rudimentary clinical decision support. And now here we are in the world where AI has run rampant at every conference that we've ever sat through in the last 2 years. And we really have uh, different governing approaches to how to install AI as part of a tool for clinical decision support and everything in between. So that is a huge spectrum of things that were very rudimentary to some things that could easily be seen as sort of running rampant if left unchecked. So I think there's a ton of things to talk through there relative to what do we think of clinical decision support at its current rate? How do we think it should modulate? What does the future look like as it relates to how do we bring better decision tools, more complex algorithms into decision tools that will help any one of our docs just really take better care of patients without expending a ton more energy. And I think that is is part of what people think of in clinical decision support, not what they complain about. They complain about being stopped all the time, right? And then
Yeah.
having them try to second guess them. But the reality is clinical decision support, if done well, hits the five rights and gives you the right information at the right time so that you don't make a mistake or that you consider something that perhaps maybe you didn't consider or it was pretty clear that you were going down option B when option A is better. And so you think about all of our work around antibiograms, right? What does the resistance pattern in this particular section of the country look like relative to the disease process? Well, that's different. And for a large healthcare system like Advocate Health, you might be dealing with three, perhaps even four or five different patterns of antibiotic resistance that might play in. And so, how do you adapt that into a more complex clinical decision support schema to deliver the right information at the right time, at the right location, because it's regionally specific? And so that's, I think, part of the stepping off of where we can go with clinical decision support and what might be new, certainly in the coming years.
There's a lot there, so let's dig in a little bit. You talk about sort of basic clinical decision support and then AI, maybe infused clinical decision support. From conversations I've had with people, AI, people are comfortable experimenting with AI, um, basically everywhere that it's not truly clinical. They're really afraid of AI being interjected in areas that are more clinical. Uh, what do you think about that? Is that also what you're hearing? Does that make sense?
Well, first, let me answer the last part. It does make sense from a glossed over perspective. I think, to be honest, I don't know many working clinicians that had the time and energy to dig deeply into AI, as some of my colleagues and others that work with us in this field might have had, right?
Hmm.
I've been to a bunch of conferences and we've talked only about AI. I
Yeah.
don't know that a clinical practitioner of nephrology would have that kind of time and energy to designate toward understanding what AI could bring. I
Hmm.
think a number of people have made this statement. It isn't mine, where there will be physicians who don't use AI, and there will be physicians who use AI.
Hmm.
So those two things are different buckets of people, and I think it's really an important part of my role to help transition physicians who wouldn't normally use AI into being able to use AI seamlessly without a ton of energy and effort, and maybe even use it where they don't really even know. Now, I'm not saying we should not tell them. I'm just saying that they don't need to expend a ton of energy learning about the AI, but they should benefit from the value that it brings. Now, behind the scenes, as it relates to AI governance and evaluating the AI tools and what they can and can't do, what they should and shouldn't do,
Hmm.
we have an entire group of folks that has stood that up to make sure that the safeguards are in place to make that process easier.
Hmm.
And then I think back to one of the beginnings of the part of your question of, are people afraid? I don't know that afraid is the right answer. They want to be sure that things are safe and they want to be sure that they're steered in the right direction. And I think we're seeing even our large, like the FDA is starting to think about stepping foot into this zone. We've seen the European step into this. The Europeans have stepped into the regulation of AI and regulation of clinical decision support. We're seeing the ONC use different terminologies for what was clinical decision support before, with the anticipation that other tools come in there. So I think the answer is it's a different time than we had 5, 10 years ago, for sure. It will take different tactics to get large groups of physicians to be comfortable in what we have to bring for them. But at the same time, I don't think we should be afraid. I think we should be understanding. Along the line,
So,
along the lines of, if you get into your Chrome browser and you type in something, hey, what's this? It comes up with a little AI summary. Sometimes that's pretty convenient, and sometimes it's not.
right. They ask you, was this helpful? Click the thumbs up or thumbs down, or do you feel this was accurate? Most people that are going to be using AI are going to not be creating it per se. They're going to be getting it through a vendor, right? The vendor has put AI into the tool. So I'm not doing it as a health system, as a CIO at a health system. My vendor just says it's in there now. When it comes to clinical decision support, would that be coming from Epic or would that be coming from a different vendor that's providing that piece?
But we have both. I think
Uh,
what you're asking is, and I see it as three different swim lanes. There is a self-built, created AI that you might do as an institution. I think larger institutions, just based on the fact that they have access to academicians and researchers and scientists of all types, they may create more for their organizations than small healthcare systems. That's probably expected. The second is, what is your primary vendor? Meaning, if you
mhm.
are an Epic shop, Epic is going to bring their best and brightest to the AI solution. And we've been testing a number of things with Epic in partnership. And then the other swim lane is your third party vendors. And there are thousands that will reach out to you every day. In fact, Anthony, if you're not aware, I'll be glad to forward those emails directly to you.
Okay, I'm
Yeah,
good.
all good. So I think the
Okay.
answer is we're going to have to
Yeah.
manage each swim lane independently.
Uh-huh.
We'll be moving forward with Epic, because they're our EMR partner. And we will also be looking to develop internal, both inside of our own walls as well as with other third party vendors, um, so that we can make a difference.
Let's talk a little bit about sort of basic clinical decision support and the problem you alluded to earlier about one of the things that frustrates clinicians a lot is being continually stopped, that over alerting or alert fatigue, or whatever we want to call it. And we go back to this conversation sort of leads to governance committees, right? Making sure we are asking the right things, that the right things come up in an order set, making sure that changes that should be made get made, but in a very organized way that goes through governance. I read a very interesting article by a CMIO called named CT Lin, who talked about how to get a change through governance. And hey, he basically was giving advice saying, you can't just say there's an issue here. You have to come with your research, and you have to come with, you have to come with a lot of information to that committee meeting to move your issue forward if you want something added or removed. Anyway, there's a lot there, but
Yeah.
what are your thoughts around getting clinical decision support, improving it incrementally and continually improving it through governance so that things don't go through too quickly that really, maybe shouldn't have gone through, but yet things can get through that should get through without taking too much time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the balance. And I think you've hit it, right? How many hurdles can you put up in front of someone before they never come back to you again? And that's what we don't want to squash. We want to make sure that people who have good ideas have an outlet for their good ideas, and that those ideas aren't just a baton where they throw the baton at you and hope you run with it, but come with some prepackaged material that says, here's the reason why I believe this is really important. But I want to make sure that it's clear that most practicing physicians identify a problem, but don't necessarily have all the time or the tools to dig in to understand what the solutions are. So there are times where you have to recognize as an executive team, hey, this is a really good idea. Like, we know we have a problem. I know it
Hmm.
came from one hospital out in the middle of nowhere, but that problem is ubiquitous across our enterprise, and we have to drive toward the right answer. Let's put a group of people and some thinkers together to maybe see if there's something out there. Then the next step is, well, how do you find what's out there already? It's the whole concept of as a cooler with wheels. What a great concept! I wish I had been the first person to patent it. All of us thought about it as we were dragging coolers across the sand in the 70s. So um, you want to make sure that there's not somebody out there as a third party that's already got a great solution that you can buy, and or what's the roadmap for your major vendor partner. So we have a lot of conversation with Epic around, hey, these things have been surfaced. What's coming on the roadmap that might address it? And I think Epic's been really good at taking a good look at those across the board. And then finally, if you can't get traction there, there are occasionally times where building it internally works well. It comes with lots of baggage, including maintenance, but and there's always costs. It's never free. So I think those are the things that you should be considering as you're thinking through, how do we get the clinical decision support really fine tuned off of good information that comes from maybe practicing physicians that don't have time to dig in. On the flip side, some of the stuff that we deliver, either out of the box from Epic or out of the box from our clinical decision support teams or any of our third party vendors, are what I call over the shoulder clinical decision support, where you're working, you click through a bunch of stuff, the pop-up comes up, and the first thing you do is go, I hope nobody saw that I did that. And you just take care of the problem. And that's what clinical decision support ought to be at
Uh-huh.
some level. And that's the protectionary, don't do the wrong thing. And not everyone's going to talk to you about how much they love that, because it makes you feel bad when you prescribe penicillin and that allergic reminder comes up and says the patient had an
Oh
anaphylactic
boy.
response to penicillin last week. You
Yeah.
still want to do this?
Yeah. No, I don't.
No, I don't. Let's not talk about this. All right. So there's a level of humanity here that comes to play. And we if you've been a doc, you get it. It's part and parcel of life.
And you can get the stats on that stuff, so you know that this alert changed what someone was going to do for the better versus this alert is dismissed 98% of the time. I
Yeah,
don't know,
that's right.
right?
And then we
So,
have teams that go through. I have a bunch of smart people that help me do this. It's not a singular event, right? It's not me. They go through and they say, hey, this is the threshold that we thought it was going to work. It's only working like this. Get rid of it.
right,
And
right.
that constant reevaluation of alerting is what keeps the noise ratio down and keeps the signal high.
Oh, well, that makes me think. you want that messaging to come across, right? You want your users to know that we're continually getting your feedback and we're making changes based on that feedback. So know
Yes,
that we're always driving towards improvement. If because this is one of the I think this is one of the things that is probably most connected to burnout is people feeling like they're not heard and nothing matters. How I feel doesn't matter. Nobody cares. So letting them know, hey, we're listening and we want to know what you think, all that kind of stuff can really help satisfaction, correct?
correct. I completely agree with you.
What are some mechanisms for that to make sure that users feel heard?
Well, I think the hard part is in an organization of size, you've got to reach everybody.
Hmm.
And at the same time, they don't want to have 1,000 emails,
Right,
right?
right.
So we try to do a lot of work with our marketing team. We try to do a lot of grassroots sort of person-to-person conversations and meetings to highlight what the good work of the team is. We've got a lot of people working in IT at Advocate Health, and they're all driving toward the same goal of best place to care for patients. We want doctors to want to work here. We want patients to feel good. We want the patients to want to come back. I think all organizations are similar to that. I think we're doing a pretty good job. We continue to come to work every day to try to do a better job. And so in every one of the meetings, you have to have a placeholder. You have to be there at the table to say, hey, just a reminder, here are some cool things that we've done to make life is now better for patients. Life is now better for physicians. Life is better for nurses. And you have to say that message over and over again. And then you have to actually listen.
Hmm.
Can't listen to all of it because sometimes people complain and they just want things removed. But there are really good reasons to keep a couple of these alerts in place. And as we get more and more complicated with the delivery of healthcare, specifically in the realm of precision medicine, it's going to be very difficult for a generalist to sort of have an understanding of everything in the EMR perfectly 100% of the time. And if we have a genetic test that says you shouldn't use this medicine, you should use this medicine, that has to be surfaced somewhere. And it's imperative that we take the best care of patients if we're going to spend the money to do medicine in that way. I think we're going to see medicine evolve more and more in that way in the near future. We've certainly been talking about it for a decade. We're starting to see it now. And we're going to have to surface the outcome of that process, the data, in a very easy way where physicians can't ignore it, or at least we need to engage them in understanding why did you choose to prescribe the medicine, even though we have genetic testing, precision medicine testing that suggests this class of medicines would be better. And then we have to learn from those, I'll say learn from those comments, if you will. And
That's
that's
great.
be an interesting world.
It is going to be an interesting world, Dr. Sullivan. I really appreciate your time today. I'm looking forward to seeing you at the forum. I'll definitely say hello. So thank you so
Great.
much. I really appreciate it.
Anthony, it's always great to talk to you. Thank you very much.